Good evening and thanks for joining us on what has turned out to be an excruciatingly long day as we count down to the battle of the states. I'm Shireen Bhan and we've got a power-packed lineup for you to decode what these election verdicts will mean for the markets, for the economy and for 2019. But first up, let's give you the big picture. You saw celebrations there in the Congress camp and there is reason for the Congress to celebrate today. Let's not be grudging about the fact that the Congress has managed to edge its way back into the Hindi heartland. Let's start with the crucial state of Madhya Pradesh, which still is up in the air, so to speak. It's been changing practically every few moments, but the Congress at this point in time leading at 112 with the BJP at 108 out of the 230 seats. I'll give you the internals of the story of Madhya Pradesh in just a second, but the Congress still very, very confident. Kamal Nath coming out and saying, we will make government. Also, phone a friend time is on. So the others in the BSP are being reached out to by the Congress is what we're given to understand. If push comes to shove, they may play a role in the way that Madhya Pradesh forms government. That's the story of Madhya Pradesh. As I pointed out, still a question mark, still a degree of uncertainty, even though the Congress is very confident. Let's now head to the crucial state of Rajasthan, and that is the picture there. The Congress is ahead. The only factor now is it going to be Sachin Pilot or Ashok Gehlot? That is the battle that's currently underway. But the other battle, that is the battle for the state, has been won by the Congress party. It's the end of the innings for Vasundhara Raje Scindia. Double whammy there for the BJP because there was anti-incumbency and anger with the state government, but also there was dissatisfaction with the central government and its policies. The BJP down to 73, the Congress at 100. Others also crucial, and the BSP also playing a factor here, 7 and the others 19. And again, the Congress pointing out, both Ashok Gehlot and Sachin Pilot, that all those who align themselves with the Congress in terms of strategy, in terms of their outlook, are more than welcome to join hands with the Congress and be welcomed into the party. That's Rajasthan going in favor of the Congress party. Let's now head to what has been the big surprise, because remember, the pollsters were calling this a very, very close race and most had given it advantage BJP. Look at how the story has changed for the state of Chhattisgarh. 67 in favor of the Congress. That's up 28 seats in comparison to the Congress's performance in the previous election. And the BJP is down 34. That's the story playing out for Chhattisgarh. In fact, the Congress, PL Punya, saying that they will decide on the chief ministerial candidate as well as government formation shortly. Remember, this was another state where it was a low-key campaign by the Congress. There was no chief ministerial face. The Congress didn't put up chief ministerial candidates anywhere. Not in Madhya Pradesh, not in Rajasthan, not in Chhattisgarh. But this is the story of Chhattisgarh, and that's the way that the state has voted in favor of the Congress. Look at Telangana. There is no Congress TDP Mahakutumi that's working in the state of Telangana. The Telangana, it's a sea of pink as the map shows you. Pink of health there for the TRS. 87, it's actually gained ground. The gamble paying off there for KCR to dissolve the assembly early and call early elections. The Congress and the TDP combined at 21. OAC and the AIAMM at 7. That's the story there. The BJP really not a significant factor. So TRS clearly is going to play a big role. Will they align with the NDA? That's the assumption as we head towards 2019, and this will be a factor to watch out for the 2019 elections. And finally, the state of Mizoram. It was the last bastion for the Congress in the northeast. It has gone towards the MNF. The Congress is down. The sitting chief minister losing on both seats, margin of about 1,000 odd votes in one of the seats, but it's the end of the road there as far as Thanawala and the Congress is concerned for the crucial state of Mizoram. That is the big picture. We'll get to the state-wise internals in just a second, but I want to get my market guess in. Joining us now is the Group CEO of Ambit Private, Ashok Wadhwa, also with us, Nilesh Shah. Gentlemen, thanks very much for joining us on the program. Ashok, let me start by asking you, because the manner in which the market has moved today, it didn't have just the state elections to contend with. It also had to deal with Urjit Patel's resignation, which was effective immediately. And yet, look at how the markets have performed. What a stellar recovery we've seen. What do you make of this?
Well, you know, Shireen, the markets opened reasonably low today, pessimistic mood given Dr. Patel's resignation yesterday. I think going into the day, the markets generally expected Congress to win Rajasthan, and then Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh were more likely to be won by the BJP. Although there was some doubts that had crept in over the last 24 hours on whether it would be 2-1 in favor of Congress or 2-1 in favor of BJP. I'd like to believe that a significant recovery that the market saw today towards the end was partially also because at one point, as the markets were coming to a closure, it appeared like BJP was moving ahead in Madhya Pradesh. Should Congress form the government in Madhya Pradesh, I believe the market tomorrow will reflect some of that sentiment to begin with. Having put politics and Dr. Patel's resignation aside for a minute, I think the market is also saying that some element of strength in opposition is not a bad idea. I think at the end of the day, we are a vibrant democracy, and a vibrant democracy is made by a politically stable government and some element of opposition. So my own view is that the market in some ways had discounted some of the election results, but is looking optimistically at the outcome. Although, as I said, we will see tomorrow morning whether there is further discounting due to the loss of Madhya Pradesh, if that happens.
Okay, Nilesh, let me bring your view in on this as well. How do you see the markets now reacting, not just to the election result, but even as they grapple with Urjit Patel's resignation and the expectation of a replacement being announced shortly by the government? But, what will be the triggers as far as the market is concerned from both these events now?
Well, in terms of the resignation of Dr. Patel as the RBI Governor, in a way there was a precedent actually set about 2 or 3 years back in terms of how the market had reacted when Dr. Rajan's was not granted an extension or he didn't continue in office. So clearly I think in a way the market at that point of time had in a way braced that event reasonably well. And in a way, the market in a way repeated its performance of then even today. So clearly what I think what is going to be relevant for the market is going to be the selection of the next governor. And essentially what are his credentials, what's his philosophy, what's his thought process, and all of that, and in a way what's his view on some of the issues that have been dogging between the RBI and the government. So I think that is going to be the most important, and maybe till that point of time I don't think the market is going to really take a stance on that. In terms of the election outcome, I think this is going to in a way bring in some air of uncertainty in the ensuing months because I think clearly this government has been extremely fiscally responsible, and I think one will have to really see and assess in terms of what is going to be the government's response to this outcome and how it really plays out over the next 3 to 4 months.
Nilesh, is that a fear that we could perhaps see the government falter on the path to fiscal consolidation, given the fact that clearly state after state, I mean, if you look at Madhya Pradesh, if you look at Rajasthan, there is a story that is playing out that the agrarian distress is for real, and that seems to be reflected across these state results. Do you believe that we could see some measures now being announced by the government? I mean, the MSP measure, for instance, was announced. It hasn't had a bearing so far, at least at the ground level. But what more do you now expect in terms of a policy response, if anything at all?
Well, if you really look at the last year or the election year, clearly I think on the last 2 occasions, I think which was 2008, 2009, and then of course 2013, 14, I think on both those occasions, the incumbent government then had essentially kind of resorted to the path of populism, which had led to some kind of slippages on the fiscal front. I think this time around, this government has so far not really gone down that path. But I wouldn't be surprised that in an election year, there would be some amount of resort to populism or some kind of give outs or handouts. I wouldn't be really surprised, especially now with the outcome of these elections. It's quite possible that the government might kind of go down that path as well. The big issue is going to be how much more. I think the government has, and I think the finance minister has also reiterated that the 3.3% target will be met. But I think even if that 3.3 goes to 3.4 or 3.5, I don't think it's going to be a big deal. Maybe if 3.5 is breached, then I think that would be a cause of concern and would be unnerving to markets.
Okay, let me bring in the BJP spokesperson, Gopal Agarwal, who is heading the economic cell, joins us. Ms. Agarwal, thanks very much. What has gone wrong as far as the BJP's performance is concerned? If I look at what the numbers were, in 2013, across these 4 states, the BJP had won 377 seats. You're down significantly from that number, Gopal Agarwal. What has gone wrong with the BJP strategy?
I think the most important factor that we analyze is, Shireen, is the issue that we have been working in the state and the center on the economic agenda for the welfare of the common man, welfare of the backward people, welfare of the people. But at the time of election, the narration, opposition has been able to just change the narration to issues like caste politics, religion, and the issues of discontent on those issues, and therefore the people got confused and voted on the agenda where we were not working on the areas. So I think
Gopal Agarwal, Gopal Agarwal, I'll come back to that, because that's not entirely accurate. The narrative that the BJP was painting was not about jobs, was not about development. The narrative that the BJP was painting was also about polarization. But I'll get to that in just a second. I want to go across to Yogendra Yadav of Swaraj Abhiyan, because he's been monitoring what's been happening across these states very, very carefully. Yogendra Yadav, appreciate you joining us here. What is the biggest takeaway from the state election results that have come in?
Shireen, before I come to that, I just happened to hear what the BJP spokesperson said, and I was utterly confused. Did he bring a wrong script to the show, or what happened? He was saying that the opposition is playing religion card in this election. Anyway, I mean, there's a lot of amusement in Indian public life. I guess it's part of that. On a more serious note, I think what these elections have done is really, sir, now may I speak? What these elections have done really is a self-correcting mechanisms of democracy. You know, like Adam Smith said, market has a hidden hand which corrects itself. Similarly, competitive politics has a hidden hand. Electoral politics has a way of correcting its own excesses. That is what has happened today. I don't think the Congress has won, but the BJP has lost. BJP has lost decisively. And what today's election has done, the results have done, is number one, it has set the agenda for the Lok Sabha elections, which is unemployment and farmers' distress. This is one issue you've been covering. So the agenda is clearly set. What it has also done is that it has made sure that the role of money, media, etc. is limited. These are necessary, but these are not sufficient. That's a very important message that has gone out. To the opposition, the message is mere arithmetic doesn't win you elections. You need to do something more than that, which was quite evident in Rajasthan, which the opposition should have picked with about 150 seats or so. They did not. So the message is for them is come out with something positive, come out with an agenda, which they have not. And complacency of the opposition and the hubris of power both have been challenged, which is good news for democracy.
It is good news for democracy. But on that point, and I'll take that across to the Congress spokesperson, Salman Soz, but I just want to pick up on the issue that Yogendra Yadav was mentioning. Let me put up the filter for the state of Madhya Pradesh. Large parts of Madhya Pradesh rural seats. Let's take a look at what that picture shows up for the Bharatiya Janata Party and for the Congress. Look at the Congress gaining 44 in the rural seats, 194 rural seats. The Congress is up 44 versus the last elections. The BJP is down 44. Let's take a look at the other filter, and that is farmer anger, because remember, this was the area of Mandsaur where we saw that farmer agitation. What does that show you? The BJP is down 14 seats out of the 54, which was influenced by the farmer anger. The Congress is up 14 seats. Salman Soz, let me get you in. First of all, good news coming in for the Congress party, even though Yogendra Yadav says that this is a vote against the BJP. It's not necessarily a vote for the Congress, so don't get complacent. But the larger takeaway for the Congress party from these elections?
Well, I think it is fair to say that there was voter anger against the BJP because there's been lots of high expectations, especially after the 2014 elections. set by the Prime Minister himself. He said that he would do in 60 months what others had not done in 60 years. And by the way, those 60 years included Atal Bihari Vajpayee's government. So the expectations were high. There is certainly anger, especially in rural areas. There's a lot of rural distress. At the same time, I think it would be a disservice to not acknowledge the good work of those who have actually ensured the victory of the Congress in certainly Rajasthan and Chhattisgarh, and also I think in Madhya Pradesh. People work hard, our workers have worked hard, our leaders have worked hard both at the central and the state levels. So I think we should not just say that, oh, it was just voter anger. Voters also see what the alternative is, and that's how they make up their minds. Now, what I'm really kind of, what I find interesting is that we're at that stage, when we're looking forward to 2019. I think, Shireen, if you look back, in 2014, when the Prime Minister won a big victory, I don't think many people would have imagined that 4.5 years later we would be sitting and musing whether whether the elections for the next Lok Sabha would be wide open, and I think they're wide open.
Salman,
I think the Congress party is resurgent and the opposition is resurgent.
I'm interrupting you. I'm interrupting you because I am getting information that the order on the replacement, remember Urjit Patel tendered in his resignation effective immediately. Sources telling me that the order for the RBI Governor's replacement could be expected any moment now. That is what we're given to understand, that it could be out any moment now. Let me go back across to our market experts who are with us. Ashoka, indications are that the front runner could be somebody like the former finance secretary, now a member of the Finance Commission, Mr. Shaktikanta Das. I don't know if this is in fact the case. This is unconfirmed news. But what if it were to be somebody like that? How would the market react?
Honestly, Shireen, the market wants to see somebody who's independent, who has the best interest of Reserve Bank of India, which has been one of the finest institutions in this country. So has the agenda of Reserve Bank of India to execute, and at the same time is able to work in an environment where the government and RBI don't necessarily have to see opposite to each other. Should that type of a candidate be possible, and should we be able to choose somebody like that, I think it will be in the greatest interest of not just the debt markets, but also the equity market. So market does not want to see one more confrontation. Market wants to see an environment where the RBI as an independent institution is allowed to do what it must do. And at the same time, the government and the RBI is able to work together as one unit.
Gopal Agarwal, I want to get your comments in as we await the news on the replacement for Urjit Patel. This was somebody that your government appointed as the governor of the Reserve Bank of India. Now, this comes on the back of Raghuram Rajan's exit from the Reserve Bank of India. And the question that is being asked is, we've had reactions coming in from former governors, from former deputy governors, from people who have been on the board of the Reserve Bank of India, that the government needs to back off a little bit and let the RBI do what its job is. Is the government now going to have to be more mindful of the manner in which it deals with the Reserve Bank of India?
I think we have been always appreciative of the independence and autonomy of the RBI institution, as we respect the contribution of this mega institution in the economic policy and monetary policy of the nation. With all due respect to all the governors, those who have contributed a lot, Prime Minister has appreciated their contribution, Finance Minister has said, and I also tweeted that I joined them on their appreciation. But I had been telling at many point of time that the autonomy or the independence cannot be the supreme, and ultimately every institution in the economic model or the nation has to be within the framework of the elected government, because the accountability of the elected government is supreme. It is accountability arises from the people's mandate, and it is the political dispensation which has to answer and which has to go for every election after 5 years and the state election.
Yeah.
So I think this debate of autonomy and independence is misfounded. Everybody has to work within the elected framework of the political dispensation. So that is only the difference in economic policy. Even you and everybody will have differences in opinion, but that doesn't mean that any one person's opinion will be supreme to all other opinions.
Okay, we're awaiting that, and what we are given to understand, again, as I point out, this is what sources tell me. It has not been confirmed yet, but Shaktikanta Das, the former finance secretary and now a member of the Finance Commission, is the front runner, is what I'm given to understand. But let me come back to politics, and I want to bring up the crucial state of Chhattisgarh, because that has taken everybody by surprise, and I would imagine even the Congress party, because look at that, 67 in favor of the Congress party. Rashid Kidwai, you were talking about Chhattisgarh, and you believed that the manifesto promises that the Congress made resonated because of the agrarian crisis that the state was facing. What do you believe has gone in favor of the Congress?
I think a number of factors. The Congress really fought that election well. All the chief ministerial aspirants were in the fray. The BJP chief minister made just too many promises where delivery mechanism left a lot to be desired. There was this caste aspirations were there. I think Rahul Gandhi did very well in fielding that Tamra Dhawaj Sahu lone Lok Sabha Congress MP in assembly elections. I think the entire Sahu Samaj in central Chhattisgarh sided with the Congress. So it is that other, backward classes that have posed faith in Congress, and this is something that Congress will rejoice for a long time to come.
Okay, let's just bring up the filters and take a look at that. Naxal-affected areas, what has been the situation as far as the Congress party is concerned? The Congress has actually gained 11 out of the 35 seats that are impacted by Naxal violence. The BJP has lost 10. Yogendra Yadav, this campaign was also this campaign that was fought on this urban Naxal card, whatever that might mean. A quick reaction from you, because I know that we don't have you for very long, but what do you make of the result from Chhattisgarh and this whole urban Naxal phenomena that was raised?
Look, frankly, that's a bogey. For quite many elections, the Naxal factor is not a factor in Chhattisgarh elections. It causes a slight dip in turnout sometimes, but recently not even that. So that's a non-factor as far as Chhattisgarh elections are concerned. The important thing is to remember that Chhattisgarh is not a state where the anti-incumbency was the highest. It is not a state where agrarian distress was at its highest.
Just a second.
I would imagine that agrarian
Sorry,
distress
Yogendra Yadav, I'm interrupting you. It is confirmed. The CNBC TV 18 news break is confirmed. Shaktikanta Das is the new governor of the Reserve Bank of India. It is now official. Remember, we told you this last night that Shaktikanta Das was the front runner. It is now official. This is official news that's coming in. It is confirmed. The CNBC TV 18 news break confirmed Shaktikanta Das. The Appointments Committee, the ACC, has approved the appointment of Shaktikanta Das, former Secretary, Department of Economic Affairs, as the governor of Reserve Bank of India for a period of 3 years. Lata, we had reported this last night, and he was the front runner, and it is now finally Shaktikanta Das.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, a man who comes with a lot of experience. He has worked with this government and with past governments. So there is a certain continuity and comfort with various regimes. By the way, Tamil Nadu order, Shireen, he belongs to the Tamil Nadu order. He can speak Tamil. That's a very important qualification for the job he is in. I mean, bridges a lot of divides, as as is important in this job. But importantly, Mr. Das definitely comes with a lot of experience. And his tenure, he was the DEA secretary when Raghuram Rajan was Governor Reserve Bank, and believed to have had fairly cordial relations with the Reserve Bank. So perhaps will be a very, very accepted face. In fact, I must tell you this, there were senior RBI guys who have now retired, just retired, recently retired, who actually fervently hoped it would be an IAS officer, simply because peace would return and they can get down to work at last rather than be mired in controversies. Someone who could pick up the phone and someone who would be respected. Shaktikanta Das would be a senior to a lot of people in Finance Ministry, in Commerce Ministry, and therefore there wouldn't be angry exchanges. There would be deferential towards a senior, and hence perhaps work would get done, or at least disagreements resolved amicably. So I actually today got ex-RBI guys telling me that perhaps a good idea to apply a salve on all these wounds is to actually get an IAS officer. And this was when I asked them what would their reaction be to Shaktikanta Das. At the moment, the G20 Sherpa, so he's also quite familiar with some important political entities around the world because of the recent G20 meet as well, where he was seen as a key official. So Shaktikanta Das certainly comes with a lot of qualifications, been there, done that, and therefore has seen the equation from the government's side. And now as Finance Commission understands the fiscal backdrop in which monetary decisions will have to be taken, certainly a man who will perhaps be able to mend fences. We will have to wait and see, of course, the famous statement from Dr. Subbarao that when an IAS officer takes the flight and lands in Mumbai, somewhere in the flight he becomes an RBI man. The organization has the ability to just, own up and capture the incumbent at Mint Street.
Absolutely.
So we will have to wait and see.
The Finance Ministry has sent many to the Reserve Bank of India's Governor. Nilesh Shah, quick reaction. Shaktikanta Das as RBI Governor. What do you make of the government's decision?
No, I think this is an excellent choice. As Lata said, he has all the right credentials which are really suited for the job, and I think this is an excellent choice. I think his past credentials, past experience will ensure that there is compatibility with the government and the Ministry of Finance. Of course, his new hat will require him to kind of bring about and ensure autonomy of the RBI. So I clearly think this is a great choice, and I think his top priority would be to strike the right balance between autonomy as well as compatibility with the government.
Okay. Well, Ashok Wadhwa is also with us. Mr. Wadhwa, your thoughts on the new RBI governor?
I think the first and the most important compliment I'd like to pay to the government is the speed with which they have taken this decision, recognizing that the most important seat in the Mint Street cannot remain vacant. So compliments in terms of executing the decision and getting all the necessary approvals. We know that sometimes the process can take very, very long. So clearly, the markets should cheer this tomorrow morning that there is a governor at the Reserve Bank of India.
Okay.
And I agree with Nilesh, as I said earlier. I think here is he's a balanced individual. Here is a person who's very experienced. He knows exactly how the government and the bureaucracy operates. Of course, he will have to be independent, demonstrate autonomy, and yet, demonstrate compatibility within the operating environment. So I would say, given the current situation, perhaps one of the best choices.
Okay, actually, Shireen, let me just mention this to you. One of the stories doing the rounds, and this has emanated from people who say they are very close to powers in Delhi, that the governor had actually indicated to the Prime Minister that he wanted to lay down office much earlier. And he was told to stay on till the elections are over because it would be disruptive before that. And that's why he waited. So while, Mr. Wadhwa, you may be right that they learnt about it 24 hours earlier and still made up their minds. But chances are, if this story is right, we didn't report it because it's come from, urti khabar. So if this is true that the governor had already intimated and he was asked to continue, the government had decent amount of time. So everybody in the market believed that the government always had a plan B, because we reported, if you remember, Shireen, in early November, that the governor was very close to signing off. And therefore, if we were so close to that news, it's very clear that the government would have been ready with a plan B from that day.
We have the head of the BJP's economic cell here with us, Gopal Agarwal. As we've been pointing out, this has been urti khabar all of last night, that actually on the 19th, when the Prime Minister met with the RBI Governor Urjit Patel, the governor had expressed his decision to put in his papers then, and this plan B was already set in motion then.
No, I don't have privy to that information, but what I think is that there has been discussions between the Prime Minister, and after that it was what was coming in the public domain, or the discussion was that the issues have been settled. I think there are some issues with regard to some other things have cropped, and as he has been said, it is because of the personal reasons, and we should not read too much into what goes behind his resignation. He has almost, Prime Minister has said that Urjit Patel has almost completed 6 years as Deputy Governor and Governor, and his contribution had been exemplary, and he has built up a good institution,
yes,
and contributed a lot, and Finance Minister also had appreciated his work. But this is a natural change. I think this has to go on. Though we are,
Sir, a resignation by the Reserve Bank Governor in the middle of his tenure is not a natural change, sir. That is an unprecedented event. While you may not want to speculate on, but it's not a natural change. Salman, so very quickly, a quick comment from you.
Well, you know, first of all, I think clearly not natural, and by the way, it's also not personal. Clearly, there's a breakdown in relationship. The governor was being undermined by putting in people who probably don't know much about monetary policy. They put them in the board. They undermined and disrespected the governor, and he quit. So he can say personal reasons, but they were not personal reasons. Now, Mr. Das is, you know, one of the heroes of demonetization. I'm not comfortable with his appointment as RBI governor. I think he was complicit he was complicit in the decision to demonetize. These guys did not say anything at that time when demonetization happened. That really hurt the country. So I'm not really comfortable with having basically a yes man as the RBI governor. I think this is a bad choice for India. And by the way, I'm really struck by this whole notion that the markets will rejoice. Please, please do not interrupt me, Mr. Agrawal. I'm really struck by this notion that the market should rejoice.
I'll give you a chance.
If BJP were to win 1 state or 2 states, whatever, you know, the markets have actually done much worse under Prime Minister Modi than they did even under the much maligned UPA 2. I don't understand what this fascination for BJP is in the markets. You know, if you look at corporate earnings, down. Okay. I don't know what you guys are talking about. You guys should be happy if UPA comes back to power, because that's how the economy is going to come back. So the market should be rejoicing if the Congress comes back, because we have experienced people. You should, you know, so I'm honestly, I think this is disingenuous. I think you're doing great disservice to yourselves.
I don't understand it. It's shocking. Nilesh Shah with a smile on his face. I'll get them to respond to Salman Soz in just a second, but very quickly let me bring Anant Narayan on the conversation as well. Anant, Shaktikanta Das, as we had reported, it is now confirmed he takes on from Urjit Patel. A quick reaction.
Well, Shireen, normally one would celebrate an appointment like this, because we have seen very, very good governors coming in from the bureaucracy in the past. These are not normal times. This comes at the back of very, very core differences between the government and the RBI. And we've seen some of those issues, such as raiding of the RBI's balance sheet, call it one way or the other, relaxation of PCA norms, giving forbearance on loan recognition, and so on and so forth. Now, putting somebody who's seen close to the dispensation will raise concerns that the government might push its way through on all these issues that Dr. Patel was resisting upon. Now, so while you know, I'm sure Mr. Shaktikanta Das is a fantastic bureaucrat and very, very capable. He's clearly got all the credentials. His CV is fantastic. We'll have to watch very closely as to what happens over the next few days. Okay. If we do see compromise coming through from the RBI on all these key factors, whether we like it or not, the autonomy of the RBI will be under question. And this will be seen as the government having its way with the RBI.
And, you know, to be fair, no matter who comes, this is what RBI watchers, foreign investors and the financial sector will watch. You could fill in any name there, but the market will want to watch whether the new governor easily allows the government to put its hand into the RBI still and pick up that 3.5 or 2.5 lakh crore that one believes they are eyeing, whether they allow the weak banks to lend to weak borrowers in the NBFC space, all these will be acid tests. And, Viral Acharya had spoken of the wrath of the market sooner or later. Technically, if all these golden rules are, broken, that you allow weak banks to lend to bad borrowers or risky borrowers in NBFC, surely the wrath of the markets will come sooner or later. So that always remains. You can fill in any name in Shaktikanta's blanks, and that person will have to prove that he will maintain the sanctity and the fundamental principles on which a good financial sector will have to be run. No two ways about what you are saying. And is he a yes man or will he stand up? We should not prejudge. Let us wait and see. He walks into a very difficult situation. There is no denying that. The government has already empowered the boards, and that decision is going to be legalized in the December 14 board meeting, we were told. Governance rules that put the board committees as supervisory authorities over the Reserve Bank and each of its actions. This is something which we have not heard. Of course, we have the Board of Financial Supervision already. We have a payments board already. But now we're going to have board committees for various actions of the Reserve Bank. So clearly that's going to be a challenge.
Lata, just 1 second. Lata, let's bring in the first reaction from the government. The CEO of the Niti Aayog, Amitabh Kant, also an IAS officer from the 1980 batch, a colleague of Shaktikanta Das, joins us. Mr. Kant, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. Shaktikanta Das, now the governor of the Reserve Bank of India. Your first comments on the fact that he finds himself treading into fairly troubled waters.
Shireen, Shakti is a very seasoned, very matured officer. He's also a very distinguished officer. He's handled the budget of Government of India for a very, very long time. He's been the finance secretary of Government of Tamil Nadu as well, and has done budget for Tamil Nadu for very long period of time. I don't think any other officer in Government of India has the experience which Shakti has in matters of finance, both at Government of India and at the state level. He's also been the industry secretary of Tamil Nadu and had steered investments across a range of areas, particularly in the automobile sector. So in terms of sheer experience of finance, industry, budget, he brings in a very, very formidable experience. He's also, as I said, extremely matured. He has a great ability of consensus building. He has this great ability of taking his team along. And he has a great ability of working as a team leader. And I've known him for a very, very long time, from my college days in St. Stephen's College. And subsequently he's from my batch of the Indian Administrative Service. And let me tell you very clearly that he's an outstanding choice. Immense experience, immense maturity, and tremendous caliber and great team leader.
Well, I happen to be a St. Stephen's alumni as well, so I know exactly what you mean. But as you pointed out, 1980 batch, the same as Shaktikanta Das. But, the point that you were making, Mr. Kant, about him being a consensus builder, a team player, so to speak, given the fact that it's no secret that there has been a rift between the government and the Reserve Bank of India over crucial issues, a virtual breakdown of communication. So is it crucial then that here is a man who has finance ministry experience now going into the Reserve Bank of India? He knows Mr. Jaitley very well. He knows Subhash Chandra Garg very well. He's worked with these people. How crucial is it that he already has existing relationships and good relationships with the team at North Block as he heads to Mint Street?
Yeah. The great thing is that he's worked in government. He's been on the board of RBI earlier. I don't think anybody else would have this great capability of ensuring that the autonomy of RBI is fully maintained and work in good partnership with the government. Both these are necessary to my mind. We must send out a clear message that the RBI is an autonomous institution, and as well as our ability to see that we are able to work in very, very close partnership with the government so that economic growth is maintained, so that India continues to grow and expand. And all this Shakti is very capable. Shaktikanta Das is extremely capable of doing.
Mr. Kanta, as the CEO of the Niti Aayog, you're also sort of checking on the pulse as far as the state of the economy is concerned. Now, we know that the government had several asks of the Reserve Bank of India to improve credit to NBFCs, for instance, to enhance lending, to move some banks out of the prompt corrective action mechanism. Now, these are controversial issues, and Mr. Das is going to have to tread very, very carefully and do a balancing act to try and ensure that the Reserve Bank as an institution does not become or is not seen from a perception point of view as a department of the Ministry of Finance. Now, as a bureaucrat, as someone in government yourself, you've had to play this balancing role many times over. What is going to be the challenge here?
Shireen, very clearly to my mind, the most critical thing as far as both RBI is concerned and as far as Government of India is concerned is to ensure that India continues to grow. I think this is the objective of RBI and this is the objective of Government of India. RBI has already done an admirable job, and an absolutely admirable job of containing inflation. And I think important thing now is to also ensure that there is adequate liquidity in the system so that there are credit flows and our industry and our medium and small enterprises all are not starved of funding at all.
Yeah.
And I think all these issues need to be managed, and this all these issues can be brought to converge together. And I don't think any one of these objectives are contrary to each other. And I think the experience of Shaktikanta Das, as both having done industries portfolio for a very long time in a state which spearheaded industrialization then, and as having been the finance secretary at both the state level and the central level, is a very, very rich and varied experience, which I'm sure he'll bring. And in addition to that, I can assure you that he's a man who has great capability of building consensus around these issues.
Okay, building consensus, Mr. Kant, I think that will be the most important, since people have diametrically opposite positions on some of the issues that are confronting the RBI board at this juncture. I want to also point out that Mr. Shaktikanta Das will be the first governor in perhaps 30 years or 28 years who is not doctoral who does not have a doctoral degree in economics or finance. I think from Rangarajan and then Bimal Jalan and Y.V. Reddy, Dr. Subbarao, then Raghurab Rajan and Urjit Patel were all doctorals either in finance or in economics. Mr. Shaktikanta Das is a postgraduate in history. And of course, not that reduces anything that he brings by way of experience, but we have Mr. Khan, do stay with us. H.R. Khan, the former Deputy Governor of Reserve Bank, has joined us. Okay, and we also have Dr. Bimal Jalan with us. Dr. Jalan, good evening, sir. Shaktikanta Das, how well do you know him? And do you think this is a good choice under the current circumstances?
No, under the current circumstances, there can't be two opinions. It's a good choice. He's from the government. He was in the finance ministry. And he will now be working in the RBI. So I'm sure that, there will, of course, be differences in future, but they will be internal and not in public domain. Okay. So it will work out. I'm glad that it was, yeah.
Okay, so we were just discussing.
Yeah.
So we were just discussing. He's a postgraduate in history, although he has wide experience in economic policy making. From your predecessor onwards, right up to the governor who just resigned, you were all doctoral degree holders in economics. Will that be a bit of a disadvantage?
No, I don't think so. Okay. Once you have, if you're a finance secretary, if you worked in the Ministry of Finance, then it doesn't matter, really. You have that experience. And you are making economic policy and you are doing monetary policy or whatever needs to be done. So he must have performed very well to be able to get the job that he has done.
Yeah.
And so that's, no problem.
Dr. Jalan, just 1 minute if you can hold on. Mr. Das comes in at a time when there are serious differences of opinion between how the Reserve Bank is looking at certain things and how the board is looking at certain things, especially whether weak banks should be allowed out of the prompt corrective action regimen and whether they should be allowed to lend.
No, I can't comment on that part. I can't comment on that part. But what I'm saying is that there are always differences of views, even in your in your editorial team or
Yes,
whatever
sir.
it is. But you all resolve it internally.
Yes, sir.
You come to the camera
We
or
don't
before you
spend
come to
public
speak.
money, sir. We don't spend
Yeah.
public money. So it's easier to disagree. In these cases, it would be very crucial. But Dr. Jalan, on a more serious note, the board is going to organize itself into committees and very closely scrutinize and supervise.
No, sorry, I can't comment on that.
The board's powers, you don't worry that that's a challenge?
I can't comment. No, I don't want to comment it. No.
Okay, what do you think is his biggest challenge?
No, the biggest challenge is to resolve the issues which are outstanding and, and resolve them by discussion with the ministry and between the RBI. And that can be done. And, there may be always a middle path. You may not do this or that.
So I think uppermost is the issue of capital. If the capital of the Reserve Bank is given away, it will be seen as not independent. Do you think that would be the biggest challenge?
No, but they would come to some conclusion which helps Ministry of Finance and which also keeps RBI, in terms of reserves or anything else as much as they want. So, these will be resolved like any, in any situation where the two parties are talking. There will be differences, but they are resolved internally, and I'm sure these would be resolved internally.
Okay, you think they'll be able to resolve it by March 31st, sir?
I don't
before
know.
the government.
I can't give you a date, but
Okay.
I'm absolutely sure that all this will be resolved.
All
Okay?
right, sir. Sir, pleasure, sir. Pleasure. Thank you very much for obliging and taking this call. And now we have Dr. Bimal Jalan's predecessor, C. Rangarajan, joining us, former Reserve Bank Governor, former PMAC chairman, policy maker for, I think, 30 years or almost 40 years in government. Dr. Rangarajan, Shaktikanta Das, I assume you know him well. He has been Department of Economic Affairs Secretary, Tamil Nadu Order. Shaktikanta Das retired as IAS officer very recently, couple of years back, and is now Sherpa of the G20. Your thoughts on this choice?
Well, Shaktikanta has a lot of experience in economic affairs, and therefore he should be able to function effectively as Governor of the Reserve Bank of India. The only concern that some people may have is that he's coming from government, but there has been in the past many people who have come from the government, IAS officers who came from the government and became governors, and they have acted very independently. Therefore, I expect that Shaktikanta, when he takes over as governor of the Reserve Bank of India, will stand up by what the RBI should be standing for and maintain its integrity, autonomy, and independence.
Okay. Well, but at the moment, the challenge is a bit severe compared to previous governors, would you say? We understand that the board is going to closely supervise everything that the governor does. Would this make it particularly difficult? How do you think Mr. Das could approach this?
Well, these are issues that will come up, and probably they should be discussed thoroughly and the conclusion reached. I don't think that everything should be taken for granted. The board may want to take a greater role, but what role it will play and how and to what extent it can go. But we all know the constitution of the board as it is now, and one must take into account the nature of the board and the kind of representations that are there in the board and take a proper decision. I think conflict of interest is one issue that will come up, and therefore taking that into account, any modification, any arrangement may be worthwhile. So I expect Shaktikanta to stand up for issues for which RBI should stand up and ensure its autonomy.
Okay. Dr. Rangarajan, you're one of those only examples perhaps of an outstanding academic who had a long career in policy making. Now, the last two governors were outstanding academics. Before that, we had IAS officers. Which is a better choice?
What's the question again?
Well, Raghuram Rajan and Urjit Patel were outstanding academics who were brought into policy making from the outside. Before that, we had IAS officers who were RBI governors. Who is a better fit?
No, I think it's very difficult to talk of which is better fit, because both are important. And even Raghuram Rajan spent a few years as chief economic advisor before becoming governor. Urjit also served as deputy governor first before becoming governor. Therefore, some experience of handling things is also built into them. Therefore, the point really is that each comes with a different kind of background. After all, there are people who come from the government who are not IAS, Manmohan Singh and Vimal Jalan and others came from the government, but they did not belong to the IAS. Therefore, there are different types of people who have been in the Reserve Bank, the governor. Most of them have come, almost all of them have come from the government, either from the IAS or from the stream. Therefore, we should really look at how they function after they take over as governor of the Reserve Bank. Many of them have, and almost all of them, once they come into the institution, they look at what the dharma of that institution is. And that is most important.
Right. In fact, I just want to point out that the Gazette notification accepting Governor Urjit Patel, former Governor Urjit Patel's resignation has just been issued by the government, saying in exercise of the powers conferred by subsection 6 of Section 11 of the Reserve Bank of India Act, the central government accepts the resignation of Dr. Urjit Patel as the Governor of Reserve Bank of India. Mr. Rangarajan, you know, the manner in which Mr. Das's appointment has been made virtually overnight, that does seem to indicate that this was something that the government was aware of, that Mr. Patel has obviously expressed his desire to step down earlier, because otherwise overnight an appointment of this nature of a replacement for the RBI governor being made in this form of fashion would seem a bit unusual, wouldn't it?
No, I think the point is that sometimes they have appointed a governor who is a temporary person. But take, for example, when Malhotra resigned and Ramanan was almost appointed by on the same day. Therefore, the question really is that that there should be no vacancy. And perhaps a decision has been taken that there's no point in having a governor who will be temporary and then will be replaced by somebody else. Therefore, they need to act. Sometimes the government will have to take decisions which are quick and immediate.
Okay. It's going to be a trial by fire almost. Mr. H.R. Khan, former Deputy Governor of the RBI, also with us. Mr. Khan, thanks very much for staying on with us, sir. You know, on the 14th of December is that crucial board meeting of the Reserve Bank of India, and that's why I said that it might be a trial by fire for Mr. Shaktikanta Das, because at that board meeting, which we understand is still on, there are going to be those crucial and controversial issues related to board governance, related to the liquidity issues that could be taken up. Now, what is your expectation, given what we've seen happen with Urjit Patel? What would your expectation now be from Shaktikanta Das and this crucial board meeting? Mr. Khan?
Yeah, I'm here. I have to leave somewhere. Hello?
Go ahead, sir. I was asking you for what you make of Shaktikanta Das's appointment as RBI governor, and what would your expectation be now for the RBI board meeting on the 14th of December?
No, he is a seasoned and a sensible civil servant, and he has served on the board of RBI. He understands the dynamics of central bank as well as government. I think it's eminently good choice. And the point you made that he has no doctorate in economics, let me tell you, that central banking is both science and art. And for your kind information, Christian Lagarde is not an economist who is heading International Monetary Fund. So having said that, I think he has a lot of challenges on hand, and I'm sure he will be able to navigate RBI and we will have a much better coordination between RBI and government. And I think he will rightly focus on both autonomy and accountability, as well as independence and interdependence. So far as the 14th meeting is concerned, I think the board has to give time to the new governor to observe what has happened. I don't think we'll have major issues discussed in the board. Maybe it will have a sort of a preliminary sort of a meeting. And going forward, I think some of the issues will be discussed in detail. One area probably where some decision will be announced about the formation of the committee, or the panel which will look into the economic capital framework of the Reserve Bank. I believe that was one issue on which there was no consensus between Governor Patel and government so far. And that could have been perhaps the proximate reason for his resignation. I think that issue probably will be sorted out by the time the board meeting happens on 14th.
Okay. Well, Mr. Khan, I just wanted to ask you, do you think Mr. Shaktikanta Das comes with better communication skills? I mean, one of the complaints with the outgoing Reserve Bank governor was that he communicated very little. He certainly communicated very little to the press other than the 6 questions he took at the end of a press conference every alternate month. But government seems to have the same issue. There were titles calling him the Reserved Bank of India. So do you think Mr. Shaktikanta Das would certainly come with, better skills on that front?
You need to strike a balance. When you need to communicate, you have to communicate. Sometimes you have to be keep quiet and let your deputies speak rather than you speak. So you have to strike a balance. And as you have seen during the demonetization days, he was a person who was only pacifying, and he was coming on to the forefront and communicating a very, very major challenge which the economy faced. I think when there is a need, he will certainly be capable of communicating clearly and coordinating and building consensus, as some of my former colleagues spoke about.
Yeah.
I think it's an imminent choice, but as I said, the challenges are ahead, and I'm sure he will be able to navigate it going forward.
Yes, communication is certainly something he should be able to navigate with ease. But Mr. Khan, just once more to persist with what Shireen was asking you, Mr. Shaktikanta Das is walking into what looks like a landmine of issues. And above all is not just the nature of the issues of prompt corrective action or Basel norms or liquidity to NBFC, but the nature of making the decisions itself. Reserve Bank is going to be supervised by board committees. Do you think he'll be able to amicably strike a balance?
In the past, in the board, we have eminent people and we have eminent governors. Once you have understanding, trust, I think that should not be a problem. It's a question of give and take. We get a lot of inputs from the earlier board members who were representing accountancy, representing industry, representing economic and fiscal background. So we used to have a lot of interface, and their views were taken. I'll tell you, for example, some of the major changes which has happened in terms of transparency and disclosure of RBI balance sheet. The idea has come from one external director, and the way that things have improved in terms of our accounting has come from another external director who is known, who is a Bhishma Pitama or accountancy. So the directors have contributed. The point is you need to have right type of directors, and similarly you should have a trust between the directors and the government. I don't think it's difficult to reach an understanding that directors provide the guidance and advice, and the governor and the management takes them the right spirit, and they in turn give them the feedback. And I don't think the directors will be very keen to overactive or activist other than giving advice, sane advice, which should be accepted in the right spirit. I think that is not a very difficult task, provided the directors are the people who have that sense of proportion in their mind.
All right, Mr. Khan, we'll leave it there. Appreciate you joining us here on the show. That's the former RBI Deputy Governor H.R. Khan with his reactions to the appointment of the former Finance Secretary Shaktikanta Das as the Reserve Bank Governor. Ashok and Nilesh still with us. Ashok, let me come to you now. The appointment is done. Yesterday, the market was wanting clarity on who the replacement will be. Of course, a lot of those contentious issues continue to be on the table. But what's your sense now in how the market is going to read this development, and especially the overhang over stocks like Kotak Mahindra Bank, where that deadline of 31st December is looming large? I mean, do you believe that we could perhaps see changes as far as some of these controversial issues are concerned?
As I said earlier, Shirin, I think the most important thing that's happened is resignation of the previous governor has been accepted. A new governor is now in position. Business will be back to usual from tomorrow morning. And I'd like to believe that the markets will start looking at how the companies are performing. I mean, at the end of the day, the fundamental reason on which the market is dependent for growth or negative growth is really the performance of the companies. Policy making, economic environment play a very, very important role. But eventually, if the corporate earnings are weak, then we all know that the market is going to behave negatively. So I think in one sense, one chapter is done and over with. Yes, the markets are going to closely watch and look, particularly the global investors are going to carefully watch and look as to how the new governor handles both the autonomy and the independence, which is of prime importance, I would say paramount importance, and at the same time, as Dr. Jalan said, be able to create an environment where there is an internal discussion to resolve issues of any conflicting nature. And so long as the new incumbent, Dr. Shaktikanta Das, is able to demonstrate that, the market will start looking for, as I said, important micro issues. And if the corporate earnings come back to what we think they should, they have been muted this particular quarter, partly because of liquidity issues, largely because those liquidity issues have also affected demand. But I think there is already easing up. We can see liquidity coming back. So it's not as if the new incumbent has to, the new governor has to come and do something dramatically different. And if liquidity comes back to the market and clearly there is demand and corporate earnings come back to normalcy, as was in the first 2 quarters of this current financial year, there's no reason why the markets won't react positively as they did in the first quarter of the current financial year.